and change. Oh, somebody else just sneaking in. And okay. So I have taught this class in a number of different ways at Pennsic over the years. And since we haven't had Pennsic in the past couple of years and people are probably need or want to know how to do this sort of thing, I decided we'd go ahead and do a Zoom version of it. I mean, once you do it, if you do it at Pennsic, it's a little late for a lot of people because they need it before they get there. So first of all, I have to do a disclaimer. I am not a doctor. If anything I say contradicts something your respiratory therapist or your sleep doctor said, believe them first, okay? Just to be on a safe side. I mean, I have been doing this for over 20 years. I like to think that I've got it pretty well sorted out, but whatever the doctor says goes first. I don't mind anybody popping in at any point with questions because we need to make sure everything's clear. Now, so I am Master Philip. I'm a Pelican in the Mid-Realm. I have been on a CPAP at Pennsic for over 20 years. I'm also a ham radio operator, and the reason that becomes important is because ham radio operators do a lot of things off the grid. Okay, get out in the field and do things with no available commercial power. And so I combined the two of them to figure out how to do this whole thing at Pennsic. It has gotten easier over the years. There are more options have come available, and we'll talk about those. But I started out with a marine battery way back, and it's worked because I go to Pennsic with my CPAP machine and I'm just fine. So I'm going to pass along my experience and then we'll get you guys started up. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the absolute minimum that you need to use your machine at Pennsic. I'm assuming that you all have a machine. You need a power supply for the machine. You need something with a battery. You need some way to connect the battery to the machine. And you need a charger for the machine. And we'll talk about each one of those pieces in turn here and then work our way into the more sophisticated options. So start by talking about the power supply. For that, we need to know what kind of power your machine needs. And the way you tell that is, this is my machine. This is my machine from, I brought it down from the bedroom. I have another machine here. I'll show it in a second. All these machines have a label on them somewhere. This one's on the bottom. And you can see right there, this machine says DC 24 volts, 3.75 amps. Okay. Let me grab a different one here. This is my old machine. This one says right there, 12 volts. That weird symbol is means DC voltage. Again, 6.67 amps. Okay. All of your machines have those somewhere. They have to by law. I have another one here. I have a picture of it. It says DC 12 volts, 3 amps. That's the picture I put in the PowerPoint. So that means that's what we need to get into that machine. Those two, 12 and 24 volts, are commonly found. Also, some machines have a built-in wall power supply, and so they'll take 120 volts AC, which is what we call commercial power or wall power in North America. If you're coming from overseas, you're probably looking at 220 to 240, and you've got a funky plug. ResMed, for whatever reason, ResMed likes to run theirs at 24 volts. Now, in order to take those and plug them into the wall, you have usually have a power brick. And I'm looking for mine. There it is. And if you look at, power brick, okay? And if you look on the sticker on the back of the power brick, it will say input, something like 120 volts AC, output on this particular one, since this is for my ResMed, it says 24 volts, 3.75 amps, which is exactly what the sticker on the CPAP itself said. So I plug this into the wall, and it creates the power that plugs in. Oops, wrong end. That plugs into my machine. Okay. So that's pretty standard these days, is that your machine came with some kind of a power brick. The power brick is taking 120 volts AC, and the standard one. I mean, that's the one you plugged into your wall. A lot of machines have an option. Not all of them do, but a lot of machines have an option for a 12 volt. And the reason we talk about 12 volts a lot is because that's what cars run on. And so now I'm looking for a cable. There it is. So a car type power supply will plug, losing my headphones. A car type power supply will have something, they don't call them cigarette lighter adapters anymore because cigarettes are bad. So it's usually referred to as a automobile power supply or an automobile power socket. And that's what your typical 12 volt DC automobile power socket looks like, or power plug looks like. So there are some, and I'm looking because I know I brought it down here somewhere. There it is. Nope. All right, where'd I put it? Okay, this particular machine here, this takes 12 volts in. The power supply from a 12 volt power supply is all it has is a automobile power supply on one end and a little connector that plugs into the machine on the other end, and that's all you need, and those are cheap. If you have a machine that requires 24 volts, then you have to go a little trickier. One option is a different power supply brick. This one has a cigarette lighter on one end and the connector to my CPAP on the other end. So this is a power supply brick just like the one that I use on the wall, except that it plugs into a car instead. 12 volts in, 24 volts out. Oh, dang, damn it. I just got out of focus again. Hold on a second. There, I don't know why. So Respironics machines tend to run on 12 volts. So all you need is that cable that's got the power plug on one end and the CPAP plug on the other end. ResMed machines tend to run on 24 volts. So you can run out and buy, and this does not require a prescription, you buy the power brick that's got the automobile power adapter on one end and the CPAP power on the other end. ResMed 11s, that came from ResMed, by the way. ResMed AirSense 11s don't have that yet. So you have a different problem. They only run on household commercial power. So for that, you need something else called an inverter. An inverter is and I'm going to pull one out here because I just bought it. Come on, open up. An inverter is a box. This one plugs into the battery, car battery on one end, and has 120 volt AC regular plugs on the other end. So this is how you can power a machine that doesn't have a 12 volt option or a 24 volt option. The downside of these guys are that this can be really inefficient. It can use half of your battery's energy just turning the power into household power. This particular one, they claim 90% efficiency. I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. I just got it. Okay. Let's see. Questions so far? Am I really doing that good?
Well, I've got a question, Master Phil.
Go ahead.
Where would you buy the power brick with the automobile plug?
I got mine from one of the online places. Like the two that I tend to use are CPAP.com and 1-800-CPAP.com.
Okay.
And they both list those. You do not need a prescription for them. So you can just whip out your credit card and pick one up.
I got mine on Amazon.
Yeah. That one, I think that ResMed one cost me $90. Now, the problem is, of course, that one is specific for the AirSense 10. And like I said, the AirSense 11 doesn't have a ResMed option yet. I've been checking every couple of weeks. Other options are just starting to appear for AirSense 11s. There are other ways to do it, but an inverter is guaranteed to work. Other questions? I got that particular inverter is from a company called Dakota Lithium, by the way, and I'll talk more about them in a minute.
You're showing connectors that plug into the car, but that's not connecting to the battery.
Hang on.
In one's tent.
Okay.
So what's the other piece we're missing?
This piece. Whoop.
Camera's over here.
Yeah. This has got alligator clips on one end to clamp onto the battery, right? And a cigarette lighter adapter on the other end to plug your power supply into.
If you're lucky, you can find a fancy one that also has a fuse.
Oh, well, yes, I have one. I have several of those. And there are I apologize for bobbing out of camera because I've got a whole pile of stuff here. We'll talk about, and there goes focus again. We'll talk about batteries in a second. Come on. But one of the things that is really handy is this is a box. It has a battery in it, okay? And it's got a power switch and other nice things. And it's got an automobile power adapter built into the box. So this will help protect the battery and gives you a place to plug it in.
Where'd you find that?
I'll tell you in a bit.
Aha.
So that's the third piece is connecting the battery to making the battery available to your car power supply plug-in thing. And then the fourth piece is the battery itself. Now I have over here, but I am not going to bring it up, a traditional lead acid battery, because the thing weighs 40 plus pounds and do not casually sling it around. That's the problem with lead acid batteries, is they weigh a ton. They are, however, very well understood. They do a lot of, they're 160 years old, the technology is, and they're very well understood. And they're pretty easy to get. So a lead acid battery is a good starting place. Less good to, and relatively inexpensive. Some of the other options are, the newer options are better, but they're more expensive. And we'll be getting to those here in a minute too. So there's lead acid, and then there's the newer technology, which is based on lithium. You've seen that because your phone's battery is on lithium and your laptop battery is lithium. There are two types of lithium batteries, and we'll talk about those in a minute here. But if you go if we talk about lead acid, which you can run out to Batteries Plus and pick one up, there are a few varieties of those, and they can pretty much all work. I strongly advise that you do not use a car battery, not because it won't work, but because its internal construction is different, and the kind of usage that you do with a CPAP machine will ruin it in maybe 20 nights. So just don't. Go and buy a battery specifically for this purpose, and you're going to want something that is labeled deep cycle. Marine batteries are good for this too, but marine batteries have they still have the little caps that you pry off and look inside to see what the liquid level is. And you need to make sure that they stay topped up with distilled water. Most of the batteries you see don't have caps. They're not car batteries. Well, even car batteries don't have caps anymore. But you want something called a sealed lead acid battery, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's full of lead plates and sulfuric acid, but it's sealed up, and you can pretty much put it in any position you want, and then clamp those alligator clips onto the terminals. There's another variety called absorbed glass mat, AGM, and it's just a different construction internally, needs a slightly different charger, but most chargers know how to deal with that. The good thing about these batteries is they're easy to get. The bad thing about these batteries is they are heavy as sin. And you have to sort of pay attention to how you treat them. For one thing, and I've been doing research on this recently, you really shouldn't discharge them below 50%. And we'll talk about that, how you tell that in a bit. So if you do that a lot, they won't work as well. They'll fail sooner. Okay, I'll talk about lithium here for a second. There's actually a couple of different varieties of lithium batteries. Most of the time you won't run into those. When you go and buy a lithium battery, it'll just be a lithium ion or lithium polymer. Those are basically the same. They're light. There's the battery in your cell phone is a lithium ion battery. They're expensive. For same level of capacity, you could expect to pay twice as much as you did for a lead acid battery. You need a special charger. And the problems there were early problems with those. How many people remember the Samsung Galaxy 7 phone that had a tendency to catch on fire? Right? Or that was like 10 years ago. Or there was the Boeing 757 had a big lithium ion pack in the cabin that would catch on fire, and they had to figure that one out. That problem's been pretty much resolved. There is a newer lithium technology called lithium iron phosphate, and it's absolutely brilliant. It doesn't have any problems in terms of safety. It's incredibly lightweight. It's like a third the weight of a lead acid battery. This one here, you see, I can sling this around with one hand. This is a lithium iron phosphate. There it is inside. Oh, that's weird. That's the same useful capacity as a 50 amp hour battery. We'll talk about amp hours in a second. 50 amp hour lead acid battery. The only problem is those are pretty dang expensive. They also require a slightly different charger, but again, that's not hard to deal with. All right, before I get into the technical topic here, any questions? Okay, then. All right, so now the question then is, how big a battery do you need? Because they come in all different sizes and capacities. The capacity of a battery is measured in something called amp hours. And amp is a measure of how much current you're drawing through the electrical circuit. And everybody knows about circuit breakers, right? 20 amp hour circuit or 20 amp circuit breaker on your house. And if you pull more than 20 amps, the circuit breaker will pop. Well, same sort of thing here. If you go back to the CPAP machine and you remember that it said, here's my CPAP machine, and upside down. Okay. And remember it said, where did it say it? 3.75 amps. Okay, that's the most that this CPAP machine will draw. It will draw 3.75 amps at 24 volts. So you need that information off of your machine because that's going to tell you something. Assuming that we've got the voltage right, this machine will take 3.75 amps. And I was talking about amp hours, right? So if I'm running it at maximum capacity, that's 3.75 amp hours per hour. How long do you sleep? If you say, I sleep 8 hours a night, and that thing draws 3.75 amp hours, and I'm running it at full throttle, so it's using all of that. What's 3.75 times 8? Well, 4 times 8 is 32, so let's call it 30 amp hours. That battery or that machine is going to pull 30 amp hours per night. Okay. So now you go to your battery and you look at the battery label, and the battery label says that it's a 17 amp hour battery. Well, now you've got a problem because 17 amp hour, you need 30 amp hours and the battery's only got 17. So you need a bigger battery. This battery that I'm slinging around here is a 30 amp hour battery. Remembering that what I said earlier about lead acid batteries, where you shouldn't draw more than 50% out of them, really. That means that if I'm doing 30 amp hours a night, I need a 60 amp hour lead acid battery, and those are really big and expensive. But I'll tell you, that number, that 3.75 amps, that's a maximum. You probably won't use nearly that much. This machine goes up to 20 centimeters of pressure. I run at 10. That means the machine's not running as hard as it could. If you turn off your humidifier, which I highly recommend at Pennsic, the humidifier will double your power requirements. So that cuts it way down. I find, and I have a meter that will tell me this, I find that overnight I'll use 6 amp hours. Well, now if I'm using 6 amp hours a night, a 17 amp hour battery is great. I'm golden. So the next question then is, how do you tell how big your battery is? Well, if you're buying just the battery, it'll say right on it. Hold on a second here. Share screen. That one. Share. Okay, y'all see that? The label here,
Yes.
right? It says right there, 12 volts, 35 amp hours. So the battery will tell you right on it that, okay, that's a 35 amp hour battery. If I'm using 6 amp hours a night, technically I could get 6 nights out of this. Realistically, this is a label for a lead acid battery. Realistically, I can get 3. I would still recharge it every day. So that means when you need to figure out, you take a look at your machine, take a wild ass guess as to how much power you're going to use overnight. Go. Oh, we have a chat here. Yep. kind of take a guess as to how much power you use a night. Guess it's better to guess high and give yourself a little extra headroom, and then that's the battery you go out and you get. Okay, how's that? Is that understandable here?
Yes.
I say, come on, give me feedback.
I think
I got-
your tips on how to calculate likely usage versus max numbers on the machine is probably pretty helpful. It sounds like you're saying that if your humidity is turned off, you're probably going to use maybe half of what it
Probably.
says. So
Probably.
that's probably pretty helpful.
Well, and consider too, okay, you're outdoors, you're in a fabric tent at Pennsic, right? Humidity outside, the relative humidity outside goes up at night. I camp on, I mean, if you get fog, the relative humidity is hit 100%. That means that your humidifier can't add any more water to the air you're breathing because the air is already saturated. So having a humidifier isn't going to do much for you. Now, another thing that will use power alongside the machine itself is a heated tube, but you may want to go ahead and use that because that'll prevent rainout. And that was my first year. I had real terrible rainout problems until I figured that out. Everybody knows what rainout is, right? It's where you get a snoot full of water from the condensation in the tube. Okay. So now you could take this information and run over to Batteries Plus and get yourself a lead acid battery. You might have to, I don't know if they carry that little battery to cigarette lighter adapter that's at Batteries Plus, but you could get that at Amazon. You find yourself a power supply, a 12-volt power supply, probably from CPAP.com, though there are other places that have them. Amazon does too. Just depends. I mean, I got a ResMed because my machine's a ResMed and I know they match up. So you get a battery, you get the clamps, you get the power supply, and then you need a charger so that you can recharge the next day. Here's a charger. Clamps on one side to plug into or to connect to the battery, plug into the wall so you can charge your battery back up, and Bob's your uncle. So those 4 pieces are the minimum that you need to get going on to camp at Pennsic. Everything else can make your life easier.
Where can you plug that in?
Well, I'm coming to that.
Okay, very good.
No, it's a fair question. This charger here, this is a regular mainly lead acid charger that will charge a regular lead acid battery, and you can use it on your car. I've done that before. It does have a lithium setting, so it should do lithium just fine. This also has remember I talked about a battery technology called AGM, absorbed glass mat. It needs a slightly different charger, and that has an AGM setting on the charger itself. So there's the question, how do you charge at events? And there goes the focus again. You charge at events you charge at Pennsic by signing up with Disability Services. And they will assign you a time slot. There are places around Pennsic where there are 20 or 30 outlets on a pole, and you sign up at Disability Services and they will assign you a time slot on one of those outlets, and you can take it over to that outlet during the day and plug it in. If you I went to Gulf Wars for the first time this year. You go to Gulf Wars, and I took my CPAP along and I asked about that. And they said, Gulf Wars, they said, wherever you can find an outlet. Just
2 miles down the road across a big rock.
Yes. All the bathrooms had outlets, so I was able to do it there, and there was bathrooms not too far away. Or you could take it to security point. I did that too. Other events, well, you're on your own. If it's just a weekend event, you may not need to recharge. I strongly recommend that when you get all this stuff, you try it at home first and run it for 1 or 2 nights and see what happens. Because that way, if it goes bad on you, you can switch back to wall power. And if it goes right, you get some experience on how to hook it up, and you'll get some experience on how long you can run. But on a weekend event, a couple of nights, you could probably run without recharging on site. You can wait until you get home and recharge.
It went bad for me on my first test. I got a power station, which I know is kind of out of the purview of what we're talking about thus far, but it shut its DC power output off after 20 minutes for no reason that anybody's been able to explain yet. So I'm still in the troubleshooting process of that.
Yeah, you may have been drawing more power than it was capable of giving you.
By the specs, I'm not, but I've heard some weird things about the Dream Station. There's a weird state, I guess, that some people say it goes into where it appears as a dead short, and the electronics don't like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely try it out at home before you go. Okay. So anyway, that's how charging works, or at least as far as plugging into the wall is concerned. Now you'll go.
Can you hear
You
me?
can,
Hello?
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, Tegas. I pictured myself buying like a unit that I take to the charging station and plug in
Right.
for a period of time, whatever it is, an hour.
Right.
And then I unplug it and I go back to my tent and I plug my CPAP machine in. I wasn't planning on batteries and chargers and all this other stuff.
Well, hang on. We're
I
almost
know
there.
they're more expensive, but what are they?
Well, that's coming up.
Oh, okay, good. I'm sorry.
I'm getting there. I mean, all of these other things, they still have batteries in them and they still have chargers in them. But
Well, I just had my knee replaced April 29th. And I just don't want to carry something heavy.
well,
all
I
through
hear
the
you.
merchant area.
I hear you. Of course, that's where a little red wagon can come in very handy. Also use it for
Sure.
ice runs. But
Sure.
on the other hand, you can, here's another fun thing for charging. If you want to do off-grid charging, anybody tell me what this is?
Solar panel.
Yeah. This particular one, okay, it's about 20 by 24 inches, can deliver 1.5 amps at high sun. Now we can play the amp hour game again and figure if I use 6 amp hours in the overnight, I need 6 amp hours in the day to recharge, maybe a little more actually, because it's not 100% efficient. But 6 amp, this thing will give me 6 amp hours at 1.5 amps. That'll take 4 hours. So as long as the sun's out, I will recharge all the energy that I took last night. I'll charge up in 4 hours and I'm good to go. And I didn't have to take the battery anywhere. Here's another one. I like this one because, okay, this one folds up, right? And it's flexible. So it's much easier to carry, and it's much easier to stow when I'm not actually using it.
What's the output on that one?
20 watts again. I also have a flexible panel that rolls up that is 40 watts that I'm going to put up on my tent roof and just hang it on my tent roof and leave it there. And then I just got one that folds up like a briefcase, and that does 60 watts. That's about 4 amps, 4.5 amps. Okay, watts is volts times amps, right? So if I say 60 watts and if car battery is 12 volts, so what's 60 divided by 12?
5.
5 amps. So 5 amps and an amp, and if I use 6 amp hours overnight and 5 amps, I'll be recharged in an hour, a little over an hour. So
What's the-
that's another option for you.
What's the
And-
mass on the one that is 60 watts?
It's 3 pounds. It's about 30 inches by 30 inches folded up.
Not much at all.
No, it's not.
Do you use a power control module?
You have to. I mean, I was just getting to that. It's called a charge controller. This particular one is configured for, that's lithium Li, Fe is for iron, PO4 is phosphate. So this particular one is configured for lithium iron phosphate only. Solar panel plugs in this side, and I'll talk about these connectors in a minute. Battery plugs in this side. This is the equivalent of a charger for a solar panel. It's called a charge controller, and you absolutely need it. Okay. Because it will keep the bits. I mean, yes, you could plug the solar panel directly into the battery and you'll cook the battery after it's charged up. So you'll need charge controllers vary in price because some of them are different technologies. I have charge controllers that cost $10. I have charge controller that costs $100. But you absolutely need to have one if you're going to use a solar panel. Okay, let's see. Battery talked about. All right, let me talk about lead acid batteries for a second here. I told you, don't discharge them below 50%. Also store them charged. Charge them up before when you get home and then put them on the shelf. And then probably once every 3 or 4 months, it's a good idea to pull it out and run overnight or 2 nights on the battery, just to cycle the battery a little bit. Helps keep it healthy. I've ruined a battery by letting it sit too long. Lithium lithium batteries you can discharge 100%, and they will turn themselves off as soon as you've used up all the power. Let's see. Okay, we're talking about battery. We were talking about batteries, and I skipped over this part. There are a lot of places now where you can get there's no single term for them. Car starter packs sometimes, or power stations. And these are complete units. They're a single box that's got a battery in it. It's got a charger built into it in a cord already attached, that you just plug into the wall, and a whole bunch of different connectors on the front. There'll be a cigarette lighter adapter. There'll be, and probably a lot of these have an inverter built into them already. Some of them will even have a place to plug in a solar panel. A lot of them will have USB connectors so that you can charge phones and stuff. These have all, in the past year or so, they've started to materialize all over the place. The first one that came out is from a company called Goal Zero, GOAL 0. And they're good, but they're wow expensive. Goal Zero is top dollar expensive. I have seen, and there's been some traffic on the Facebook group about different varieties. Jackery is a company. There's a Renogy, I think, is another one that's got a bunch of those out there. There's a bunch of Chinese manufacturer of these things, and some of them are good, and some of them are less good, and some of them are terrible. And it's really hard to tell. And you got to pay real close attention to the reviews. But if you get a good one, then the convenience factor is worth it, even though it costs some more, because it's all one unit. The Jackery ones, and then I don't remember the brand that we were talking about in the past couple of days on the Facebook group. You can buy a solar panel for it, or you can take it in. And they have lithium batteries in them, so they're easy to pick up and carry. and their convenience factor is off the charts. So some of them will even have inverters in them. So if you don't have an option for 12 or 24 volts, you can just take your CPAP machine and the home power supply and plug it into the thing, just like you plug it into the wall at home.
The one I got is an EcoFlow, and that's the one I'm having problems with my Dream Station. But I've heard some input that the Jackery doesn't have that same problem for the people that experienced this already. Also, there's a Jackery, I think it's a 300 watt hour. It's right around $300, I think, and it has like full 5 stars and like 3,000 or 4,000 reviews.
Yeah. All right. Let me talk about, you said watt hours there, and that's good because like we need to remember, we need to turn watt hours into amp hours so that you know how long you can run on one of those things.
Yeah, the math is real.
Well, remember I said watts is volts times amps. So 300 watts divided by, we'll call it 12 volts, though it's probably closer to 13. Divided by 300 watts divided by 12 volts is 25 amp hours, or 25 amps. So you've got a 25 amp hour battery in that thing. That's pretty good. The ones I've seen before, I mean, okay, a couple of years ago, I talked to a guy who had one, had a Stanley logo on it, like Stanley tools. That was a 17 amp hour lead acid battery in it. And of course it weighed like it's carrying a lead acid battery around. So it was, 25 pounds or something like that. Now they're going to lithium now, and the weight is way down.
It's probably worth noting that Jackery that I'm talking about, I think it weighs 6 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah. The difference between the power density per weight ratio between the Jackery, or between lithium batteries and lead acid batteries, is really astonishing. If it wasn't for the fact that lead acid is really well developed technology and relatively inexpensive, I'd expect them to disappear. But I've known about lithium iron phosphate for 6 or 7 years now, and the costs are just now starting to come down. I have a 50 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery, and it cost me $500. Okay, any other comments? Or go ahead.
I picked up a 100 amp hour AGM battery. As you noted, yeah, they're heavier. It's closer to 45, 50 pounds.
Yeah.
It was a little under $200.
Yeah. Lead acid it's relatively inexpensive, but we're talking in relative terms here. You're still, I mean, car batteries are now, just a car battery is what, $150.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a zillion car batteries out there. So, I mean, whatever scale in terms of quantity, they've already achieved it. These other ones, I mean, you see a lot of these have been used in the sealed lead acid batteries get used in alarm systems and emergency backup power supplies for equipment, things like that. And so there are a fair number of them out there, but they're still, they're relatively inexpensive compared to lithium. But you have to deal with all the weirdness with lithium batteries. If you can afford it, a lead acid or a lithium iron phosphate is excellent for this.
When you
Yeah.
say, if you could afford it, what kind of numbers are we talking?
Well, like I said, a 50 amp hour lead acid battery that I started out with here, I got at Batteries Plus for around $150. A 50 amp hour, and remember, I can only use half of that realistically. So, I mean, I can drain it down to take 50 amp hours out of it, but it'd be better off if I only took 25. Because otherwise I wear the battery out sooner. I have a 50 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. It cost me $500. So 150 to 500. I just got that as sort of a birthday present to myself. Also, if you're going to do that, if you're just going to buy the battery and you're going to use solar, you'll need to make sure that your charge controller does lithium as opposed to lead acid. A couple of other accessories here that make your life easier. This handy little dude tells you what your battery voltage is. Notice it plugs into the lighter adapter. This is only effective on lead acid batteries. You can't use this on lithium. I mean, you can use it, I'll show you, but it won't tell you anything because lithium batteries, lead acid batteries, as you use it, pull energy out of them, the voltage droops. And it's upside down. And it doesn't show up. It says 13.22 volts. Lithium batteries, the voltage doesn't droop as you pull energy out of it. Lead acid, the voltage does droop. And I have a chart here which will show you how much charge you have left, capacity you have left based on voltage. And at 50%, that would read 12.23 volts. And that means I've taken 50% of the power out of the battery. So if you're running a lead acid battery, having a voltage meter of some kind, that one just happens to be, you know, $10 at an auto parts store, is handy to have. Let's see here. You can get, and it didn't bring it down, but you can get a nifty little meter that tells you how many amps you've pulled out of a battery. You wire it, and I've gone out of focus again. You plug it into the battery, and then on one side, and you plug your equipment into it on the other side, and it tells you what your current draw is and how much you've taken out overnight. I'll provide a link for that. Aaron's doing it. If you haven't looked at the chat, take a look because Aaron's posting a lot of useful links here. You have to wire it in. It's not something that you can easily. It doesn't have alligator clips unless you put them on it yourself. But it's handy because it'll tell you exactly how much power you took out of the battery overnight, so you can keep an eye on things. What else have I got here? I have, I'll provide a link to that. Now, I was talking about something a little earlier called these little weird little connectors here. These are called power poles. This is very popular in the ham radio business because they always made up. All you have to do is push them together. You can't plug them in wrong. You wire it up so that the red is positive and the black is negative. And you can't, so it won't connect up. So it won't connect here. The way it's built, I have to match up to connect them together. I bought a tool because I use them all the time in my ham radio stuff, but you don't have to. You can buy cables that already have those on the ends of them. So I have a huge variety of them. I have one with alligator clips to a power pole so that I can just clamp onto any battery. I have power pole connectors for the cigarette lighter adapter. I have one that has a power pole connector on it. It's very handy so that I can basically plug anything into anything. And I will provide a link to a company that lets you they have a bunch of pre-made cables with power poles on them, or you can get custom cables with power poles on them, or you can buy the tools to do power poles yourself. And then you can get into the fun thing of power pole distribution, which I do a lot of, and I'll show you a picture here in a second. There. Okay, so this thing here has got 4 power pole connectors on it, and I plug the battery into one of them, and I can plug a bunch of things into the other one. So like tent lights. If I went back and I put a power pole connector on my tent light, the 12-volt tent lights, I can plug that in. That's very handy. It's not, certainly not required. Oh, and one last thing. I have another picture here for you. Come on, share. There we go. See that? That's a filter. This is a filter that I put into my CPAP machine. And this is the same a filter, the same variety of filter that I pulled out of my machine 4 days later at Pennsic.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Pennsic is notorious. I mean, well, you know, in 1 square mile, there's 500 campfires. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of dirt in the air.
A lot of soot. And all of that soot, it was stuff that would have gone into my lungs and been under pressure going into my lungs. So yeah, I swap out at Pennsic, I swap out filters every 2 to 3 days. So get a bunch of extra filters for your CPAP machine and be prepared to change them. The first time I did that, I forgot to change it out when I got home. And I put the CPAP on when to go back to bed, and I was like getting slapped in the face with a campfire because of all the smoke smell. So oddly enough, it didn't really seem to accumulate on the innards of the machine itself. So I swapped the filter out, and the smell went away. I take that filter with me and I show it to my respiratory therapist and freak them out. Now I have I've been experimenting with. You can go down, look around on Amazon for a HEPA filter, and I found one that was about like yay big. 5 inches around, and I'm taking a cardboard box, cutting a hole in it, dropping the filter into the hole, and then putting the CPAP in the box with another hole for the power cord and another hole for the hose, and use the HEPA filter to pull the smoke out of the air. I haven't actually done it yet, but I've been experimenting with it. So that's another option if you're worried about breathing all of that smoke. Okay, questions?
There's
Do
a
you have
power-
any other, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Do you have any other options for purchase of some of this equipment as far as where to find it?
Which equipment? I mean,
Do you
because
have, do you have any places that we should be looking for some of this equipment?
Oh, okay.
Any
All
dealers or-
right. One other, I missed another battery pack option here. I'm going to share my screen again. Let me come back. I'll come back. We'll answer your question here in a second. But we have, okay, this is the standalone battery packs in this particular, share here. This is the standalone battery pack, and you can see this has got, there's a cigarette lighter adapter. There's some other ones up here. I can go find other ones here in a minute. There's this guy. These are specifically designed for your CPAP machine. Okay. It's a lithium. This is a lithium battery pack of some sort, a little converter, and then it plugs into your CPAP machine. These things are nice, but they are single use only. The only thing they will power is your CPAP machine, and they're expensive. This particular one here probably costs $300. For what it does, it's really good. And it will last maybe 1, maybe 2 nights. It's really good, but the only thing you can use it for is your CPAP machine. Now, to answer your question about where to get them, I mean, Amazon sells a lot of this stuff. I've gotten a lot of my stuff through, oh, hang on a second here, CPAP.com or 1-800-CPAP.com. Hold on a second. And now let me share the screen. Come on. There we go. Share the screen. That one. Okay. So this is 1-800-CPAP.com. Oops. And I have just happened to have this bookmarked. This is the power supply for my AirSense 10, the battery powered AirSense 10. And it even comes with the little cigarette lighter adapter and alligator clips doodad. So these guys have a lot of this stuff. You can get, and most of it you don't need a prescription for. You need a prescription for masks and you need a prescription for the machine itself. This other stuff, you can just call them up and give them your credit card and away you go.
I have seen those particular units, and they only last about a night. They were actually designed, as I understand it, for when the power goes out at your house, you can make it through the night without your CPAP going wonky.
Right.
But then they have to be recharged just about every day.
Yes, you're exactly right. This one here claims 4 to 6 nights on a single charge and 13 hours to recharge if you use it all. I can't verify that. Notice this one is lithium iron phosphate.
I'm noticing that it's a pro version. Is there an amateur version?
Well, there's a non-pro version that doesn't have quite as much capacity. That's this one here. Okay.
That's pro too.
Yeah, you're right. These things are good for 1 to 2 nights, and you'll get more if you turn your power demands off. Here's this one here, the Medistron. These guys have been around for a while. They claim, what do they claim here? 1 to 2 nights. With, notice, 1 to 2 nights, continuous runtime on average pressure setting with the humidifier and heated tube disabled. 19,000 milliamp hours, or otherwise known as 19 amp hours in this battery. Go back to that amp hour calculation again. So that's another reason to go with, besides the fact that this thing is this is $340. But this comes with the stuff to plug it into your machine and the charger. And so that's the charger. So you don't have to get a bunch of other pieces. You're probably going to spend this amount of money anyway if you went out and bought a lead acid battery from Batteries Plus a charger, plus the fittings to make it run on your machine. You're going to spend in this ballpark anyhow. So, now you're talking trade-offs here because this battery only weighs a couple of pounds.
That's the argument that I had with myself when I was looking at doing this, and came to the conclusion that if I spent $300 on a fully built portable power station that would get me through 2 to 3 nights, then I'd be much happier with the end result.
Yeah, plus you can use it for something else.
Yeah.
Right? You can use it to charge other things, and as opposed to just your CPAP machine. That particular one, it has a USB output on it, and a lot of them do these days. Remember, if you run a lot of stuff off the USB, that takes away your power for your machine, your CPAP machine.
My sister came up with something interesting. The ones that are specifically designed for CPAP machines might be covered under health savings accounts and stuff like that because they're medical.
They're medical equipment, yes. Oh, and bear in mind, you probably can't take them on an airplane. If you're traveling, you have to, the airlines or the FAA has limited individual batteries to 100 watt hours. You cannot carry a battery in the cabin. I don't know about checked baggage, but you cannot carry a battery in the cabin if it is over 100 watt hours. So 100 watt hours.
You can't carry a lithium ion or lithium ion phosphate in checked baggage at all.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah,
All
we just flew back from Idaho last night. So When they ask you when you check baggage, if you've got any lithium ion or lithium ion phosphate batteries in your check bag, you can carry them in your carry-on, but you can't check them.
That's 8 amp hours. Okay. So, yeah. So if you're planning on flying to Pennsic, you're going to have to do something different. Find a friend who's driving and have them carry the battery, ship it to yourself by UPS, and you ship it to the Cooper store or something. Oddly enough, that rule was written for lithium ion that caught fire, which doesn't happen with lithium iron phosphate, but they're not going to change the rule.
Does the lithium ion battery take longer to charge up than the old style?
Not really. There are calculations for the maximum current that you can put into a battery to charge it. And it turns out that for lithium ion or for lithium batteries versus lead acid batteries, it's about the same rate. So they're probably going to take about the same amount of time.
The EcoFlow battery pack that I got, the power station that I got, features a fast charge mode that it can take it from 0 to 80% in 1 hour. That's the fastest one I've ever seen as far as power stations go. I think the comparable Jackery unit, the one that I posted in chat, I believe it is at least, I think it's twice that. It might be 2.5 hours to get to 80%.
I will point out that fast charging wears the battery out sooner. That's why they don't do it.
Yep.
The same thing with Tesla cars. Okay, Tesla has lithium batteries in them, and they will charge. You can charge them to 80% in 20 minutes. They don't like it. They recommend that you don't do that, but if you have to, you can. Interestingly enough, by the way, a Tesla battery is like 10,000 batteries the size of D cells. 10,000 little batteries. I've seen aftermath of a car accident where somebody hit a Tesla and burst the battery pack, and there were these little cylinders scattered all over the landscape. By the way, you could actually run your CPAP on regular D cells. Probably couldn't make it through the night. I checked it out once. A Duracell copper top D battery, you know, the big ones, is 1.5 volts and 4 amp hours. So you could stack up enough of those D cells to get yourself to 12 or 15 volts and run your machine for 4 hours.
A nice series parallel circuit would definitely get you enough power to do the thing.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to have to buy all those D cells.
Yeah, because you're going to use them once and throw them away. But you could do it in an absolute pinch.
I'm going to see that math and compare the weight of the D cells to the lead acid battery.
Excuse me. So as I started following this group, I saw Goal 0 450, something called a Max Oak CPAP. I'm looking for a unit I can carry over to the charging station, charge it, take it back. Not a lot of bells and whistles I got to deal with. Something self-contained as much as possible. Now I'm thinking about getting maybe a mid-size solar panel and hooking it into it and trying that out to see if I can eliminate the walking back and forth.
Right.
We just bought the we also bought the EcoFlow, the 576 watt hour.
EcoFlow.
And it we bought it in a bundle with a 110 volt solar charger. We did a test. I ran it down about 25%, and then our backyard's pretty shaded, but it charged it back up in an afternoon. Jackery also is one that we looked at that has a good sized battery that also comes with solar panels. The nice thing about with units like the Jackery or the EcoFlow or Goal 0 is that their solar panels are matched up to the unit, and they have the charge controllers built in. So you don't have to have a separate charge controller, but they're proprietary. So if you don't want to use a charge controller and you have an EcoFlow battery, you've got to have the EcoFlow solar panel.
Okay.
So the convenience raises your price a bit, but it kind of all comes in one unit. You know, our solar panel folds out to about 2 feet by 4 feet, but it folds up into a little briefcase size thing.
And has a carrying case.
Yeah, and has a carrying case. The solar panel has a carrying case. I was pretty impressed with the other thing that I like about the one that we got with the EcoFlow is it actually has a monitor on the front that tells you anytime you plug something in, how much power you're drawing. Like I said, there's a lot of bells and whistles. You pay for the convenience, but it's something you don't have to build yourself. And that's why I did it, because I was just kind of, it's been a long time since I've done any serious kind of electrical work. So I didn't want to try to build something. But yeah, the based on my wife and I both use CPAPs. That's why we got the bigger, the 576, because we figure that will get us through a full night. Last time we went to Pennsic, we were using a 288 watt hour unit, and it got both of our machines with the heat off about 4 to 5 hours. So by doubling our capacity, we figure we'll be able to get through the night, but we're probably going to have to charge every day. The idea for the solar panel for us was that so that as we're using fans and charging phones and things like that during the day, the solar panel can keep it topped off. We registered with Disability Services. We're on the Serengeti, and we charge in, I think it's N block, and register early with Disability Services because they run out of good times and good spaces. Our first year, we had to walk from the Getty all the way into disability camp every morning with our battery. So, and then we had the afternoon, like the 3 to 11 charging shift. So register early.
I think of the 2 or 3 of the locations for charging are already filled up. I registered a few days ago, and I had the choice of only a few locations. So definitely want to jump on that. There is an online form or something. I will see if I can find that and I'll link it in the chat.
Yeah, the first year that we camped, you couldn't register with Disability Services till you got there, and of course we came halfway through Peace Week, so it was nice this year knowing that we could register ahead of time and our slots taken care of. I don't have to walk a mile every morning to charge up my battery.
Yeah, right. Wagons are very useful for that, and in the first few years, that's what I had to use too, until I figured out the solar thing.
That's my morning routine. The battery goes in the wagon. I go plug it in. I go get some coffee. I grab some ice. I come back to camp, and there's breakfast.
But so yeah, for you can't beat those power stations for convenience. Laura asked about a particular one. She sent a link to one of the Jackery ones. Jackery Explorer 300, which is 293 watt hours, and yeah, that'll work great. You'll want to put $300, so that one would work fine. Does that have a cigarette lighter adapter on it? Yes, it does.
Yep, and that's that one is compatible with solar panels. It's got 5-star reviews out of 3,000 reviews, so that's
and it's pure sine wave. Well, I'll take my pure. I know about those pure sine wave inverters, but Jackery's been around for a while, and their names they seem to do. They have a pretty good reputation. So, yeah, you're paying extra for the convenience, but okay, that's fine.
So out of the back of my ResMed, cable comes out to plug into the wall, usually at home.
Right.
So now that plugs right into the Jackery?
This Jackery one, yes, it can plug right into. Jackery has an inverter built into it. So it's got 2 wall power plugs on the front.
Okay, or the EcoFlow is probably the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, ours has 3.
Okay, and
Why we got it
why
instead
do
of the
I
Jackery?
need the cigarette plug adapter?
You're going to run into about a 30% efficiency loss on using because the inverter has efficiency loss that's built into the unit, and then your power supply for your ResMed has efficiency loss. So you lose about 30% of your available power just in converting to the power to run the ResMed. If you run directly 12 volt, then you get that 30% back. So it'll just mean
Okay,
that
so
you
then
won't
I
have to charge
plug
as
into the
often.
ResMed with one end and the other one has the cigarette lighter adapter that plugs into the unit.
You
Yes,
got it.
And I don't use the cord I use at home. Oh,
Right.
okay.
right.
Ah,
What kind of machine do you have at home?
it's a ResMed.
ResMed AirSense 10,
It's old. It's from the VA. It's probably,
maybe a 9?
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
the VA is still doing the S9s. That's what
Okay,
I've got.
all right, hang on just a second here. Let me look, I'm gonna look online real quick. Let's see, power options.
I'd have to run in the bedroom and look and try to read what the number is.
ResMed,
And then I'm not even sure how to turn off the water feature. Is that's through the front screens? And
yes, that'd be on the front screen.
oh, man.
Or another option, okay, ResMed S9, I'm looking at right now, they have a, if you've got an S9, all right, tell me, is your machine mostly black and shaped like a pyramid or a triangle, or is it silver with a black stripe across the top?
No, it's black. It's
Okay,
black.
then that's probably the 10. That's a $90 power supply. And you can take the humidifier out, right? It just pops right off the side. And you
Mhm.
can, and it should have come with a plate that snaps in place of the humidifier.
Okay.
If it doesn't, you can get one of those, and that turns the humidifier off because the humidifier is not there anymore.
Huh. I'll have to go look on my parts and pieces bag, but I don't ever remember seeing something like that in all the ResMeds I've ever had.
With ours, we've got the S9, and you can take the humidifier chamber off completely, and where the air goes from the pump unit into the humidifier chamber, that's where you put your hose in. You just use the non-heated hose in that case.
So yeah, that's ResMed's.
The hose plugs into the back of the unit.
Well, that's what this
With-
plate is for, is it redirects the air so that
Okay.
it doesn't go through the humidifier.
Okay.
But if you can't find it, they're pretty easy to get. So you could order one of those when you order your power supply.
Yeah, I'm registered with the handicap. I'll find out where I'm at when I get there, they told me. So all I gotta do now is research the ResMed and see what I need from there.
Yeah, check CPAP.com or 1-800-CPAP.com or some of those other sites, and they've got all the bits and pieces that you need for this, and none of it requires you sending their prescription.
And
Oh,
on
here-
a really hot day, there's a chance that the solar panel may just charge it up enough so I don't have to
Yes,
walk.
yes.
All right, I feel much better.
I camp up in the E block and we have complete tree cover. I use a 100-watt solar panel, and unless it's a like really rainy day, that will keep me going throughout all of Pennsic.
Yeah, that the first panel I showed you, the rigid 20-watt panel,
Mhm.
I've been able to run basically on a power positive budget for my CPAP machine the entire war with that. I would get myself a slot at the recharge for Pennsic recharging and then never use it. I had it there in case I needed it. So yeah,
The
that's
only thing else I would probably run myself would be a very small DC light in the tent. You know, just so I don't trip and fall or something.
Sure.
And a charge phone.
that'd be fine.
I see the Jackery page also lists down towards the bottom a slightly less expensive 240-watt unit. I'll have to take a look at my Dream Station and see if that would be sufficient.
If it says 240 watt hours, divide by 13, and that'll give you amp hours. Then you run your amp hour calculation on your machine.
You know, I'm thinking of getting out of the aero business and going in to become a solar panel merchant at Pennsic. Oh,
You
Could
can
be the
rent,
hot ticket.
Rent them,
rent them for Pennsic.
take a bunch of them to Pennsic and rent them out.
Yeah.
Okay, how we doing? Anybody else got questions?
I was just going to mention that the 110 power pole over by Disability is next to a stop on the bus route, and while the power plugs are all out in the weather, I've often gone past there and see the bus stop populated by batteries being charged so that they're out of the weather.
Yeah. So the reason for going with the power station type thing is convenience. But typically those don't have as much capacity. If you, some of them like I know Goal Zero, you can buy add-on battery packs and stack them together if you need more capacity.
More power.
If you want a lot of power, like my tent light, I have rope tent lights that work really well, but they are really power hungry. I need bigger batteries, and I'm bringing 3 batteries to Pennsic this year and 4 solar panels.
I just put together some lanterns. Well, I'm in process of putting them together that run on a they use that like 5.5 by 2.1 standard like power plug. It plugs into the front of my EcoFlow, and then it goes into a wirelessly controlled relay, and then it runs to the 2 lights, and the lights both put out 500 lumens each. So I got 1,000 lumens in my tent this year, which will be fun. And it's all wirelessly controlled. I can just like reach a hand into my tent and click a button.
Yeah, but every time you do that, you need more batteries, more power.
Yeah, well, it's
just-
LED, so at least it's not terrible.
But that's that's weighs into your calculation here. If you're just worried about power in your CPAP machine, then that's one thing. And if you're going to start running all this other stuff, or if your machine, I mean, okay, we keep talking about CPAP machines, but there's, how many other nebulizers and things like that that can be run the same way. I don't have any experience with them, so I can't tell you what kind of power requirements they have, but they should have the same options available. So, this will work for them too, as long as you can figure out a way to run it off of 12 volts.
Oh.
Okay, so how are we doing?
Can I ask a question? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Hello, hi. So I've got this new Dream Station 2 unit that I got because of Philips recall. And it says that it uses 6.6
Yeah.
watts, 6.67, whatever.
Probably 6.67 amps, I imagine.
Yeah, it sounds correct. It sounds pretty right. So what I was thinking about getting a portable rechargeable solar one. How many, I mean, how much wattage would I need that for an 8-hour night?
Well, okay, remember what I said, that 6.67 is an absolute maximum.
Right, that's with the heated tube and you're heating your water.
And with the pressure turned up all the way.
I got it up to 9.
Okay, it'll probably go up to 20. All right, so
I don't need that much.
yeah, you're probably running it at about half load. But if you want to be pessimistic, you take that 6.67 for however many hours you're going to sleep. So that's why I just say 8 hours as an average.
Yeah, 8 sounds fair.
So 8 times 6 is 48. All right, that's 48 amp hours, or more like 50 amp hours.
So I need 50 amps.
50, well, amp hours. Okay, that's the number of the capacity on the battery. That's a measure of energy. How much energy does the battery store?
Okay, so it's 6 times 8. Okay, I understand now. So that's 850. Okay, I understand where you're getting that.
Right. So now you go looking for a battery system that has 50 amp hours. All right, 50 amp hours, that's a lot. Which is why I'm thinking you're probably not going to use half of that. You're probably going to be not even a third of that, I'll bet. So you're probably going to, but if you're being absolutely pessimistic, you're going to need a 50 amp hour battery and you're going to recharge it every day.
Right. So like, for instance, I'm on Amazon now and I'm seeing so many variations. I just don't know which one to pick.
What are you looking at? SLA type batteries?
Just whatever will make my damn unit last the night. And then
Okay.
you know, because I've become so addicted to my CPAP, it's not
Yeah.
even funny. You know, and I figured, hell, fuck it, I'll just go to you know, like you said, disability point, which I have no idea. I've never been there. So I don't even know where the hell that's gonna be.
So they're all over the place.
Well, disability point or disability services or a recharge point?
You know what? All of them. I have been to Pennsic 15 plus years.
Okay.
Just got back in the SCA.
All right. Disability services is usually in front of the Cooper store.
Okay, that's not too far from where I'm camping.
Well, that's where you go to register for this stuff. Disability camping is up.
No, I'm not disabled.
Okay. All right.
It's
Well,
backed up.
there are power stations, places of power recharge stations scattered around the camp. I mean,
What do you mean?
there's some in the there's one or two in the Serengeti, and there's one down by the bathhouse at the bottom of Runestone Field. And there's, you know,
I'm near where the solar showers used to be.
right. That's okay. That's on the edge of the Serengeti. I don't know what's up there because I don't camp up there, but
I think they're all
I
gone
can, I
now.
can, I
They're
can
all
speak to
gone. I
that.
had to get one over by the West Gate.
See, you're
When I
all talking.
registered a few days ago, I had the same choices, and I'm actually camping in Royal this year, which is East Royal, which is very near where you're talking about, I think. So I actually ended up registering for a spot at Disability Services, which again is by Cooper Store there, so it's a little bit of a walk, but not terrible. But that was
Yeah.
the closest place I could come up with for the places that actually still had registerable slots left.
okay.
So
So now,
you have to register before we even get to Pennsic.
yeah, you
Yeah.
should. Yes.
Would be
Yeah.
helpful, yes.
That would be the best.
Yeah,
Oh.
Michelle put up the link that you're gonna have to go through. You'll get a text saying, okay, this is what you're gonna have to do. They'll give you a spot. If that spot is already full, they're gonna give you another spot, and then they'll give you another spot. They already had to go through 2 spots with me from 7 to 3 because I chose 7 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. And I chose over there in the N block because that's where my camp is in N block. And then they're like, yeah, no, sorry about that. We have nothing available there. So they're like, okay, we have this and we have that. Oh, so sorry. This is full. You got to go to disability camp.
Okay.
And
I need to
that's-
step away for 1 second here, so I'll be right back.
So that's what they had to do with me. They literally had to send me over to disability camp to charge my stuff at. I mean, which isn't so bad. In the morning, I'll be over at EK University like 4 days out of the week anyway.
We're okay. Like I said, I haven't been to Pennsic for like 15 plus years. I have no idea where you're saying disability camp. Give me an idea. Think of the barn. Well, it's now a store, I found out.
I
Cooper
believe that's
store.
where disability services is now. It's right by the store.
It is. It's literally right in front of the store.
Okay, so but I need to log in or somewhere to get signed up
Yes, Michelle literally just put the link up in the chat. That's what you have to fill out. And then it'll be emailed to Disability Services. Disability Services will get with you
Oh, shit.
on.
Okay, I didn't even know this was, I don't do Zoom. I'm learning all this.
No, it's cool. We understand.
Okay, so
You know, there's a pretty comprehensive map at the Pennsic War site that you can actually see the locations. When they tell you where the locations are, you can sort of find them on there by looking for like a red icon, something like that.
Disability Services is located in the Town Hall 10 across from Cooper. Okay. July. I'm not seeing where you have. How do you?
I'll pull that up for you. Hold on, let me get you the specific link that you're gonna need. Hold on one moment.
I just posted a link to the Pennsic War map that shows the entire campground with all the routes and stuff. Disability handicap camping is a red block over behind Mid-Realm Royal. That's
Yeah,
one location of a power block or power charging station.
I'm not disabled. I just.
No.
No. You're not, it's not as if you're disabled. None of us are disabled. What you're gonna have to do is you literally have to register with them to get your tag to charge up your CPAP, to charge up your charger for your CPAP.
The reason they do that is to keep people from just wandering up there to charge their phones.
See, there you go. I just did that. I just put it in there. It just says from, from Grainne to everyone, Pennsic War, disability services. That's literally the thing you're gonna have to fill out. In there, you'll find the specific thing you have to fill out.
And you're Grainne?
Grainne.
Sorry, forgive me.
That's cool.
Okay, but so in your case though, okay, I looked it up. Dream
just did
Station
that.
2 takes a 12-volt power supply. Okay, so you don't need those fancy extra power bricks. Your 12-volt power supply is just a cord with a cigarette
It's-
lighter adapter on one end and a
What? No,
plug.
it's got the wall plug in, and then it plugs into a little brick,
Right.
and then it plugs into
That's the wall power version. If you want the battery power version, it's just a cord with a cigarette lighter adapter on one end, and it plugs into your CPAP on the other end.
I'll
So
just,
so it's easy.
I'll,
no.
so like if I buy a box, it doesn't come with a cord for me to just plug it in.
Look at the one on my screen. Okay, hang on just a second.
Sorry, forgive me.
No, that's okay. Let me. This guy. All right, that guy. See that?
Dan. Yeah, it looks like a car. It looks like a cigarette thingy thing.
Yeah.
I heard y'all talking about it. What are those? What are those for? That doesn't.
That's would power your Dream Station. That plugs it into a cigarette lighter adapter on one end, and and your CPAP on the other end.
But
These
I don't.
connect to your battery.
Yeah.
And then you have the cigarette style plug, right? So this is what provides the power. And then the power supply itself is, and this is an official Philips product here. So this plugs into your cigarette lighter adapter, and this end plugs into your CPAP.
You
Right.
don't use the cord you use at home.
Right.
Why?
No, you do not.
Use that all together.
Because this replaces that because you don't have wall power.
Right, you're not.
The
So
only
instead
thing
of
that-
plugging into the wall, this lets me plug into my battery.
The only thing that cord is doing for you at home is changing 120 volt wall power into 12 volts. You already have 12 volts, so you don't need that cord you use at home.
I'll
Right.
point out that
So
I
this
just
you can,
posted a
you get-
link to a battery specifically for the Dream Station 2 for anyone who's using it. And it's about the same price as that Jackery battery pack.
yeah.
This is an option.
But this is okay. So you take that cord that he had, which I finally found mine, which all right, hold on a second here. Let me make this bigger so it's easier to see.
He was looking for specifically like a power station type solution too, right? So he wouldn't
Well,
need the
Okay,
alligator clips or any of that.
right. A power station will have one of these guys on the front panel. Or you can plug, so you plug this into the power station, you plug the other end into your CPAP, and away you go.
I lost you. Forgive me. I'm still on Dan.
Oh, he's got his Jackery here. Hold on. Now let me make you.
Okay, yeah, okay. I'm looking at those. Why can't I just not plug in my regular plug-in to the box?
Because that uses that plugs you into alternating current, and you want direct current.
Well, you can buy those that have a wall power connector on them. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's where you run into the efficiency loss of 30%, and then you have to charge more often.
oh, is that,
Or you need to buy a larger capacity battery because of the efficiency loss.
You gotta forget that the plug that you use at home. You just gotta get that out of your mind. That has to go. That messed me up there for a while. Because all you're doing is taking 110 out of the wall, and that block converts it to a 12 and sticks it into your CPAP. But you don't need to do that with your portable power supply.
Right, because it's already 12 volts. So you're going up and down, and that going up and down is not as efficient as just going straight in. So you get you buy the Jackery, which has got the cigarette lighter adapter on the front. Then you buy the cord like this one, which has got your cigarette lighter adapter on one side and your CPAP power on the other side. And you're good. That's it. You're ready to go.
so what you're saying is instead of plugging the little brick that comes with my house, use that instead and plug into the cigarette lighter.
Yep.
And that gives you more efficiency and it makes the battery last longer.
Exactly right.
Okay.
And then you can recharge by using either, because the Jackery or whatever one you get will come with a charger that plugs into the wall. So you can recharge by taking it to a recharge point, or you can get a solar panel and recharge it at your tent.
Well, we're back to now finances because I'm looking at these 800,000 watt and I'm like, oh my God.
Well, but I guarantee you're not going to use 50 amp hours. You're running the machine at half power or at half strength or less. You said you were at 9, right?
Yeah, I use it 9.
Right. And you're not going to use the humidifier, and you're probably not going to use the heated hose. So I'll bet you're going to use per night under 10. It's nice to have the extra, but you probably won't use it. So, go lower than
like 800 watt.
Oh, you probably be down to 600 or less, probably.
Okay. Okay.
The EcoFlow I got based on my calculations and my actual measurement of current flow, I should have been able to get at least 2 nights out of it with all the stuff turned off. Now, because you're running a dream station, I would not recommend the EcoFlow because I've been told there might be an issue, and I certainly am having issues right now. So Jackery or some other brand is what I'd recommend. But yeah, I would think you probably don't need more than, like, if you want to be on the safe side, you could go with like a 500 watt hour power station. I think Jackery does have a 500 watt version. The one I linked in chat is a 300 watt hour, but they offer all levels.
And so what you do, you buy one, say you buy the 300, you try it at home. You'll get the cigarette lighter adapter thing so that you can run off of it directly. Then you try it at home. If you can last the night, you're good. If it doesn't last the night, send it back. You're buying from Amazon, you can return it the next day.
So
and
you're
get the
saying
next,
basically get off my ass and get something and see if it works. If not, send it back.
yeah. I'll bet you'll use less than 10.
Well, I saw somebody posting a link here, said the Respironic Dream Station Go Overnight battery.
Let's see here. Yes. Okay. Yes. Freedom. Those guys have been around for a while. Those are good.
Freedom.
Freedom V2 CPAP battery. They're not Respironics. They're an independent company, but theirs is set up to run in Respironics. That's why they say that. Theirs is, the downside to that is that it's the only thing it will run is your CPAP. If you want to do anything else, well, this one might think has one USB connector on the front, so you can charge a phone.
Yeah, I just thought of something. and this kind of goes along with the CPAPs, maybe you need to do another episode. How about air pumps to pump up an air mattress?
12 volt. Yeah.
How much will that cut into your night's sleep?
Are you pumping it up every night?
No. Some of these, get an air mattress and you want to just put it in your tent and pump it up once, and hopefully it's going to stay pumped up till you leave. But
Yeah, I've never yet met a air mattress that would stay pumped up for more than 2 days.
well, maybe we
Right.
need to have a Zoom meeting and let's do it on Pennsic air mattresses. Because
Hold
I
on.
need to get a new one. Boy, Amazon's gonna get a piece of me, I tell you.
Unless of
Right.
course you make an adapter for your CPAP to blow up your air mattress.
All right, it'll panic. Plus, it'll send that to your sleep doctor, and your
Yeah.
sleep doctor will wonder what the hell we were doing. See here.
I had a Zeppelin that I needed to blow up, doctor, and the CPAP was handy.
I'm looking at one right now on Amazon. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell me how much current it takes. You could. It'll work. I mean, the one I'm looking at here's got a cigarette lighter adapter. It would certainly work. I don't know how much power it would take to out of your battery. I can't answer that question.
But it can be done. I can
Yes.
pump up my air mattress with this Jackery or whatever.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
And a
And if you
solar
pump it up
panel.
during the day, you're recharging it off the solar anyway.
So
So any
Well,
other
then-
questions?
uh, this is all so confusing.
Well, if we can take this off, and I think we can wrap this part of the thing up, and I'll turn the recording off. Nope, somebody else just joined.
Oh, that's fine.
But if you want, we can build you a shopping list.
Yeah.
I could do that and drop a note on the Facebook group, say, hey, I need a shopping list for this, and a couple of people I'll write down the things that you need to get going here. We'll build it around a Jackery, and then all it is a whip out the credit card. You might
Joy.
have
Or
to.
you could just review our shopping list if we send it to you and just say, yeah, that looks good, or.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that way, I mean, the only real difference depends on the machine you have. But if you have a Dream Station, then all you really need is that one cable. So your power supply question is relatively inexpensive. And if we build it around the Jackery and a solar panel, yeah, then it's just a question of, order it through Amazon and you're good to go. I mean, I like these power stations. I got into this business way before the power stations were even available, let alone the variety that we have now. And that's why I have 4 batteries and things like that. If I was doing it today, I'd do a power station.
Yeah.
That's it. The power stations just make it so much more convenient. You are paying some for the convenience and the fact that it's not as flexible as it could be, because I can swap batteries out if I need a bigger battery, where if I've got a power station, I'd have to replace the whole thing. But, so I have lots of bits and pieces here. And a lot of that goes to the ham radio thing too. But as far as, for these days, for us Pennsic goers, power stations are the way to go as long as you get a good one. I've seen people talking about a power station that had some cheap Chinese crap battery in it that lasted 3 charges and then it died. Yeah, and there are cheap lithium iron phosphates out there that just don't hold up.
Okay, so what you're saying is get a battery that takes the little DC plug-in, and then get the ones that look like a a cigarette lighter plug-in, and there you go.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that should just make you go.
And these days, that's the way to go, I think. The cigarette lighter adapter for your CPAP to, if in your CPAP, it's just a wire, really. And then to a power station that's got a cigarette lighter socket on the front. And you're good to go.
Yeah, and then just once a day, hope to God I don't get something that says you can recharge at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, that's where you recharge it every day, either with the solar panel or by taking it to some place with a power out or with a wall plug. That's why, the whole business about disability services is that because they manage the wall plugs. If you've got a friendly merchant, you could probably take and charge it there.
Those
Oh, I
power
don't-
stations usually have a capacity meter on them too. So after you sleep a night or two, you'll see like, oh, I use 15% when I sleep, so I can run this X number of days. And when you're getting low, you'll know ahead of time because it tells you right on the front of what your current percentage is.
Oh, well,
The good ones do anyway.
well, so I'm seeing everybody's posting what they're using or what they're.
Jennifer asks, can you recommend a few brands of power boxes that are better to go with? Of my own experience, no, but that's because I don't buy them. I see the Jackeries have been around for a while and are extremely well reviewed.
Based on my current issues, if you're running a Dream Station, I would not recommend an EcoFlow.
Goal Zero is great, but they're really, really expensive.
So the consensus what I'm getting is a Jackery is pretty solid.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
what I'd buy if I had to do it over again.
okay, and
Yeah.
then I'm sorry.
Oh, excuse me, Jennifer. I just picked up this thing called a Bonsaii. I got it from the Amazon warehouse, their warehouse sale. It's got a 4-star rating. So I'll definitely let you know how that one goes. Fingers crossed. So also I just want to double check through my bag, my bag for the my CPAP to get just to double check on filters. And I'm also going to get like the 9-volt or the 12-volt also. So this way it's not going to suck up all that much power. And also I'm not going to use, bless you. You're welcome. And I'm also not going to use all that much. I'm not going to use the humidity light like Phil said, only because since we're going to be up that way anyway. And I know Pennsic, I've got photos of the Pennsic foggy mornings. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to need to get like Pennsic fog first thing in the morning, if you get what I mean.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to stop the recording now because I think we've done more than we need to for the class. I'm not going to stop the meeting though. We can go as long as we need to.